Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. The groups for Masters Tokyo have been officially revealed and they are very spicy indeed, as we'll dive into here in the coming minutes, but also results from the North American Challengers playoffs. This will determine which two teams get to go to the Ascension qualifiers very shortly indeed, and G2 off to an absolutely shocking start once again. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Let's get right into things. Firstly then, well actually I wanted to mention this quickly from ValoRant. There is currently a spot here on Ascent where you can drop the Killjoy ultimate inside these boxes. There's a little hole here in the top, and if you get it lined up correctly, bang, it goes straight in. And this is, I believe, impossible to stop. And also, I mean, the radius on this is fantastic for whichever side you're on. So, I mean, yeah, that is very interesting to see. And I imagine they're going to try and fix this in due course. Wanted to bring your guys' attention to it to exploit it to the absolute maximum before it gets removed from the game. Let's talk Masters Tokyo then. So, there's two parts of the schedule. It's a very traditional format that, well, they've done for some time now. There's the group stages for about 4 or 5 days from, I believe it's June the 12th to potentially, well, we'll see it in a second, actually, it might be June the 11th to June the 14th, 15th or so. And then a couple of days later, the schedule begins for the playoffs run. So this is where things get serious from about June the 18th or June 17th in North America, and we'll see the times here in a second because these are the standard starting times. In Tokyo, it's going to be 12 noon for the first game and 3 p.m. for the second game. That means Berlin time, Central European Standard Time, which is 4 a.m. my time, is the first game, and then the game after that starts at 7 a.m. my time, which is not too bad. And then in America, it's pretty tough, right? I mean, if you're on the West Coast, you can maybe just about get away with it, but East Coast, guys, it's going to be difficult because it's going to be like an 11 p.m. start, the first game East Coast. So anyway, this is expected. I know people will complain about it as they like to do, but fundamentally, it's in Japan. That's how it's going to be. The time zones are finally going to favor people from Tokyo, from Japan, from Asia, and also from Australia as well. They'll be quite happy about this. So it's about time this happened, to be honest, and that's how it's going to be. So anyway, this is how it goes. Pretty standard stuff. All the finals for the playoffs, lower finals, grand finals, which are both going to be best of 5, concluding on Sunday, June the 25th. This, though, is how we're going to get there. This is the group stages beginning, as I mentioned, June the 10th actually in NA, and June the 11th in the morning for Tokyo time. These are the group games we shall see in a second. The groups play each other through in a standard style format we'll see in a second, and that comes out with a dark day, which is just like a break effectively before the final teams are confirmed through to the playoffs. And of the 8 teams in the group stages, 4 of them go through, 2 from each group as is standard GSL style format, and the winners then get randomly seeded against the 4 teams already advanced. Those 4 teams are Loud, the number 1 seed from the Americas. They are Liquid and Fnatic, the number 2 seeds, well, number 1 and 2 seeds from the European region, and then of course also PaperX from the Pacific, right? So those 4 teams guaranteed through to the playoffs, and they will play the winners of these respective groups, which arrive now as follows. So here we go. This is Group A, this is Group B. I believe these have been seeded based on actual seeding itself, because Na'Vi had a rather difficult time in the EMEA sides. They got a worse seeding than maybe they would or should have done, but it does mean that Group A is pretty stacked, right? You've got to say. Group, finally, I think for DRX, they don't get the group of death. They quite often do. This time they don't. So they play against the actual, I believe they're the best Chinese team technically right now, this ASE squad. Despite EDG being, you know, the bigger name, they actually lost to this ASE team in the finals there in China quite a while ago. But if EDG are good, then, you know, it does throw a cat amongst the pigeons here in Group A. The real standout, of course, is NRG Na'Vi. That's your first round game. There's so much to say about this. Of course, Keith, well, Ardis, playing against his former team, or at least his former teammates, who were on FPX that became Na'Vi. So, you know, Ardis versus cNed is going to be a very interesting battle there, and kind of remarkable that's a first round game. One of these teams is down to losers immediately. I would still predict both of these teams to get through this group, but it might not be easy at all, and that's going to be a very difficult game. I don't think Na'Vi have really shown their true potential level over the last few weeks, and NRG, we know they're capable of a lot, and they will almost always get through these type of groups, but it's not going to be easy. T1 are no slouches either, right? And who knows what you're going to get from the 2 Chinese teams. Edward Gaming could put up a fight in this group as well. So to me, Group A is the one to watch, right? Because someone's going to lose between NRG and Na'Vi. They'll then have to win 2 in a row, and even once they get that, they'll only get the number 2 seed, which presumably gives them a slightly worse draw, although I think they did say it's randomly drawn in the playoffs. It might not matter too much. And T1 over the last few weeks have been pretty competitive with the best of the best in the Pacific. So Group A is is pretty stacked, you gotta say. Group B is even more interesting in some regard because there's going to be, I mean, like DRX are probably going to make it, right? Let's be honest. But outside of that, who else is going to be making it, right? Maybe the Chinese team FUT Esports have looked surprisingly impressive over the last couple of weeks as the 4th European team to make it, actually the 3rd European team to make it through, right? Because they beat Na'Vi. So that's probably why Na'Vi end up in Group A here rather than FUT Esports, and EG play FUT Esports. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to predict. I feel like in a way that EG and DRX could be the favourites here, but it really depends what you get from FUT and what you get from EG as well. But yeah, Group B seems more achievable. Finally, DRX should be able to get through this one without too much difficulty, but Group A is pretty damn stacked, and that first game, NRG Na'Vi, is going to be very spicy indeed. Let's dive into then what's going on in the Americas Challenger side. This is really kicking off at the moment, and the playoffs are finally around. After the entire season, Split 1, Split 2, the mid-season invitational, where G2, let's not forget, looked very good. Split 1, they looked pretty damn good. They were talking about how they were, like, you know, winning a lot of their scrims against even the top pro teams. Pro teams wanted to scrim them all the time because G2 were giving them pretty much the best practice, and then they come in and it doesn't go so well in Split 2, but it's fine, right? They're still qualified for the playoffs. Were they just saving strats? You know, maybe they were. I know ShahZaM said that they weren't and they were just playing bad, but also even if they were, like, you know, obviously the confidence isn't going to be there regardless, and as they say here, you know, go 0-5, good strat wheel, ready for playoffs, they say, and, well, were they really ready for playoffs? Because they turn up last night to get bodies relatively quickly. M80 versus Shopify was also going down. Thought Shopify might put up a fight here, but M80, I think honestly the loss they took a little while ago now really kicked them back into gear. Also, the CEO here says the following. Now, you know, when you see stuff like this, I always think like, oh no, like what are these guys cooking up, right? Because M80 has raised 3 million in seed funding to become the first Web3 enabled esports team, which is going to allow people like fans to have stakeholder interest in the future, which is, I mean, if I hear Web3 enabled, I'm like, oh my god, here we go again. But anyway, maybe it's going to be cool for M80 and the organization of the franchise. So anyway, that's what they're up to. Before we get into the results of this side, Moist Moguls thought this was pretty spicy from Flyer, who says, now, will this backfire? We'll see. But honestly, for this to backfire, they would have to make it to franchising, which would be a really big step for them. Obviously, that would mean they're winning Ascension. I think we could easily play against like 3 or 4 of the franchising teams and beat them. Like maybe 4, to be honest. We do really well in scrims against them, and I assume the Guard and M80 do the same. So this is very interesting. I guess he means Americas, actually. He's probably not talking about Detonation Gaming and, you know, let's just say Carmine Corp. They're actually a little bit better now than they were before. So, you know, maybe he's not talking about those things. Maybe he's straight up talking about 3 or 4 of the Americas franchising teams, the likes of, you know, Crew or maybe an MIBR, right? So it's shaping up to be really interesting, but G2 are just absolutely nowhere near competitive anymore. It just does really bring me back to that whole, like, Ethan versus Whippy drama where there was some drama. I think it was against, was it Moist Moguls or Breakthrough or whatever it was at the time, and Whippy was talking all this about, oh, you know, getting that replay to cheese it and make, you know, maybe if you put more hours into the game, you'll be more relevant, but it's not like Whippy was that relevant back in the CS days anyway, and they lost this series super comfortably. That ShahZaM didn't even tweet anything. That's kind of how you know, right? ShahZaM didn't tweet anything, dapr didn't tweet anything. I know that Oxy says, O2, no words, need to focus up, and this from Whippy, 24 today's happy birthday for Whippy for yesterday, but yeah, got a birthday debuff today because they got smoked. Oxygen take them down 2-0, and this wasn't even close. It was just, I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore about this G2 team because they've fallen off so massively, it's actually kind of embarrassing. They looked good at the start of the season. Ever since Split 2 came around, they've been way off the pace, and they could not pick it up again when it mattered. 13-6, 13-8, not even competitive this series. They all got fried, to be honest, right? And the other series was M80 versus Shopify Rebellion. I think, you know, Shopify Rebellion looked pretty good a few weeks ago, but M80 just a little bit too good when it mattered here, and they turned up at around about the right time. They had a little bit of, not exactly a slump of 80, but there was like 1 or 2 games where they didn't quite play what they normally do, but this time they do. 13-9 and then 13-2 on Pearl. Just an absolute bloodbath. 20-4 from John QT, and they get over the line without any difficulty. So yes, it's already shaping up to be relatively clear which teams are going to make it here, because G2 are done. There's absolutely no way. They got 2-0 by Oxygen. They're starting and losers against SR, and they'd have to win, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 games to make it to the finals in a row. So the grand finals teams, they qualify for the Ascension playoffs, I believe is how this goes. Of these 8 teams, 2 of them get through to the Ascension playoffs in the Americas. They all play against the best challengers teams in the other regions, and you would think that the North American teams should be favoured to make it through in that case, but it's of course far from guaranteed. Still, the favourites here are going to be M80. I think that's pretty much hands down. But on the other side of the bracket, things get very interesting today today. The guard play phase. That's a big game. I think the guard should be favored, but I'll say 2-1. Then Moist Moguls TSM. I think Moist Moguls can get the job done there 2-0. And then it really gets down to the crunch time where, you know, Moist Moguls might play the guard. And then if they win that, they might play M80. And that's where you really got to see, because the winner of the upper finals makes it to the Ascension playoffs to give themselves a chance to qualify through Ascension and make it all the way to the Partnership League, because only one team does from the entire region, right? And the other team that will be there is the one that wins the losers finals, which could still be any of these teams, but yeah, it's going to be SRG2 and losers round 1. It's highly doubtful. I mean, one of these teams goes out immediately, and of course, it's highly doubtful that any of these teams makes it really beyond losers round 2 or 3, given the quality of competition dropping down from above. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. This is already taking some shape, and it's G2 again with an absolutely shambolic start to their playoffs run, showing that this whole, like, you know, people were saying, oh, they're just saving strats. Clearly not the case. They needed them yesterday, and there was just nothing in the locker. So is this a Sentinel style fall off that they had with ShahZaM and dapr a while ago, or like, you know, is this even worse? Very much intrigued to your perspective down below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.